Mandy Pryor, and welcome to the Southwestern PA Business Podcast. We're here with David Hoffmann of Just About Wealth Management. We're going to talk a little bit about his business and what you should look for in a financial advisor. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You've been having a big week.
I have. It's been a busy one, for
Yeah,
sure.
so why don't we start? And, you just opened a brand new office, so talk a little bit about that. And we did big ribbon cutting yesterday.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We bought a building over in Bridgeville and wanted to expand, so found a great building over there. It was already kind of set up for a financial advisory office, and so we bought it, and we're now trying to fill it up, so that'll be the fun part of it.
Yeah, and it's a gorgeous space and many offices and a big co-op room.
Yeah. Really hoping to use that for networking events, for chamber events and things like that going forward. Letting our clients use it for when they have events, for their families and things like that. The more people we get in there, the better for us for business.
Yeah, they'll find out who you are and that you're a gracious host, as you were yesterday.
Well, thank you.
I know that Amy and I already tossed the idea around of a networking event there.
Yeah,
so
I'd love to
hopefully we'll get together and do something.
For sure.
Oh, it's fun to work with the other chambers out there and bring our networkers together in a big, it only helps to build their businesses.
Absolutely.
And so tell me a little bit about Just About Wealth Management. And I love the name. Thank gosh you mentioned that yesterday. So tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah. So we've been around for 5 years. We're just about to hit our 5-year anniversary. But I've been doing this for 28 years, so I've been in the business for quite a while.
Good experience.
Yeah, definitely. But, I founded the company because I noticed a lot of people in our industry were doing everything cookie cutter. They wanted to, take portfolios and put everybody in a model portfolio. And the financial planning they do is very cookie cutter overall. And I thought, and the whole reason behind doing that is you can get more clients that way. You can grow your practice faster. But I really am most concerned with the experience that our clients have. So doing everything in a customized way, the way we do it, is an advantage, I think, because every client situation is different. So all of the financial planning that we do for clients, all of the investment management is all customized to their personal needs. And I think that is the way that things should be. Even though we might not be able to grow our business as fast that way, it'll be best for our clients, and that's what's most important.
And so what type of clients do you have?
Oh, we have all sorts of clients. We have, from very young people who are very aggressively saving, and those are the people we love to see come in because they realize at a very young age that they need to, start aggressively putting money away for their futures. And we have the whole way up until people in their 90s even. And at every age you need to save and to make sure that you're properly invested and things like that. So we have people from all different professions, small business owners, doctors, attorneys, you name it, school teachers, a pretty wide array of different professions represented.
And why is it so important to seek out a financial advisor as opposed to just putting money in a savings account?
Well, savings accounts are paying a nice return right now, but that hasn't always been the case. If you look at the last 10 years, it's really only been 3 years that savings vehicles have made more money for people. But prior to that, they were making barely anything. So you have to make sure that your money is working hard for you. You have to keep up with inflation at a minimum. If you don't, it could be to your detriment in the future. You could end up running out of money down the road.
Yeah. And so talk to me a little bit about 401ks. I know that you do help with that and that process. So.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that maybe sets us apart from some other companies out there is we work with individuals, but we also work with companies and do 401k plans for them. And so we actually sit down with the participants in the company's plans and talk to them about their investments and things like that. So, if we were only 401k providers, we would not have the experience on the individual side that we could bring to their participants in their plan. And so the other thing is that a lot of plans out there don't educate the employees. Sure. And we think that's extremely important as part of it.
Probably half of them don't know exactly what it means or what they're getting for it.
Yeah, especially large companies. It's hard to educate employees when you have a huge company. But smaller companies, it's not as hard. And we always can put together a podcast and send it out, which we do for some companies.
That's nice.
And then they put it on their intranet, and then people can go in and watch it whenever they want.
Because I'm sure some of the companies just send a PDF out. They're like, all right, here's what this is. And they're, if it's a bigger company, depending on the type and the employee type as well, they're like, okay, well, it sounds good.
Yeah.
You're doing that? Okay.
Yeah.
So they probably just ignore it and just, so a podcast is a nice other way to give them a way to look at everything.
And especially if they have people all over the country. Some of the businesses we work with are here, but others have people all over the place. So it really can be helpful to have that out there. But it's important to do it because a lot of these people don't have their own financial advisor.
Yeah.
So we always tell our 401k participants, if you don't have one, then give us a call or drop us an email when you have a question about something financially related, because we can help them with it. And we want to build those relationships with their employees, because when they retire, they may want to move their money over to us. So it's a win-win situation.
That's true. And so tell me a little bit, how did you get into financial advising?
Oh,
and why did you open your own business?
Yeah. Well, those are two very good questions. Getting into it, I was in grad school, and my wife and I started getting more serious, and she informed me that she wasn't moving out of the Pittsburgh area. So my program was actually international. It was an international studies program.
And here you are.
Yeah.
Very international.
And so I couldn't really go to New York or DC, which is where a lot of people go when they have that degree. So I said, well, I need to find something in the Pittsburgh area then. And I started talking to some friends. I had a friend in this business, and she kind of told me about it. I had always enjoyed the stock market and doing stock market games in school and things like that.
I think of sixth grade and the stock market game, and I did good.
Yeah,
I did good.
I don't think I did very well back then, so things have changed in that regard, luckily. But I started going to job fairs, and what I didn't know is that pretty much every financial company back then would hire you, and then just see if you stuck or not. And I interviewed at 3 different places, chose one of them, and spent about 1.5 years there before I moved on to another company where I spent 20 years, and realized that the initial place that I was, the world was very small there. When I went to the company after that, I realized that there's a whole different world out there.
Whole different world. But it's good sometimes to get that small business experience before you move to a bigger business, because then you get the bones and the what's the driving force behind it and all the challenges, and then you go to a bigger company and kind of they tend to separate you in more and more and more, so you don't get as much in-depth experience in each thing. So
I really learned early on what it's like to go out and hunt for business. And that's the hardest part of our industry overall. Some people say investment management is hard, and it's challenging sometimes, especially when the markets go up and down. Some people say it's very hard to do a comprehensive financial plan because it's very in-depth, but I think the hardest part is going out and finding new clients.
Oh, I bet. I do know. I have a young. She's not a member of the chamber, but she's a financial advisor. Just started. No book, no anything, and she's like, help. Because she's just trying to build a base, and if people don't know you, especially when you're talking about money, they're like, well, but how long have you been doing this? And why should I trust my money with somebody new? So that's a challenge. Even if they could be the best at it. It's just the startup. So
and if you think about it, who wants to give their money to a middle 20-year-old kid, give their life savings to them to manage for them?
Which they're thinking, how do you have experience with money? So
so it's hard. And I remember when I was about 5 years in, I met with this guy, and he said, well, how long have you been doing this for? And I said, 5 years. And he said, that's it? And I said, at what point does it get to be that, you have enough experience? I thought 5 years was enough, but not according to that guy, So I said, is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? I don't know. But if you make it through the first 5, generally, it gets a bit easier from there because you built that base for yourself.
You start making good contacts. So you decide to open your company.
Yes.
How long is Just About Wealth Management? Got it. And I knew that too. I've been putting it on everything. How long's it been open?
5 years. We'll hit 5 years at the end of this month. So We actually have a client appreciation event coming up.
I was going to say, I have to bring you like a thing, a proclamation or
it's very exciting.
certificate.
And it's really flown by very quickly. And like I said, the reason I wanted to do it is to do things the way that I felt were the best for the client. And it's grown very, very well. I've hired 2 advisors now. I have Brian, who's been with me for over 3 years. I have Michael, who's been with me now for about 4 or 5 months.
You just hired Brian for his name.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Cartier, yeah.
Brian Cartier with financial.
That's right. And, have a couple family members working in the business right now, but, not permanent jobs. But, and then Jody has been with me forever. And Jody doesn't like the limelight very much. She didn't really, I don't know if you noticed yesterday, she kind of stayed out of it.
I'm going to go back to my office and do good work.
She said, I have to go deal with the copy guy, so she just went upstairs.
Yeah.
But she's been with me for 17 years, and she's been, I say she's the real boss when it comes to our office.
Well, the good thing with that typical personality type is that they're very diligent and they're meticulous to detail.
Very detail-oriented.
Yeah.
She's very detail-oriented, yeah. And clients love her. That was why the first thing I did when I wanted to start the company is I called her and I said, you're coming with me. So she really couldn't take no for an answer on that one.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So she Jerry Maguire'd you. She took the fish.
That's right. Yeah, she didn't even have a chance to say yes or no. I just said, you're coming.
Come on, let's go. So what made you take that leap to open your own business? Because that's, that comes with what you were doing before, but then that's a whole slew of other responsibilities.
I've always been very entrepreneurial in my life about things, and I always had a dream of owning my own business. And I was kind of hoping that maybe I could work up through the company that I was with and eventually take that business over. But, I wasn't really sure that avenue was open. So, an opportunity presented itself. So I thought it was a good time to make a move. But, the other nice part of it was I was working downtown every day, and it's a beast of a commute every day.
I know. I used to work down. Yeah. Oh. In the wind and the cold and the parking garages, that's half the battle right there.
It is.
And it's different down there now. If you go, it's like a ghost town.
I know. But, I was down there and I thought it would be wonderful if I could be closer to my family so then I could get to their events and things like that.
Yeah.
One time I was trying to go to my son's tennis match and I got stuck in traffic, and by the time I got there he was done playing. Just things like that. But so it's nice to be a lot closer to home these days, for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Set your own hours.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. I actually, I had an AAU baseball team that I set up myself when my son was younger. I've always loved like running things like that on my own. So, that was a big reason for it, I think. So, yeah.
So you have financial advisory business. There's lots of, obviously, financial advisory businesses in the region. What should people look for? Obviously, they should choose you. But what should they look for when they're looking for a financial advisor?
Yeah. I think the biggest things, I think, are ask a lot of questions. Ask about their experience. Ask about their credentials. I think that's a huge one. We have the CFP. Brian and I both have the CFP, and Michael's going to be getting it.
What's the CFP?
Certified Financial Planner. And that's one of the most notable designations in our industry. There are a whole lot of designations out there, and a lot of them are very easy to get. The CFP is not one of those. It's very challenging to get it.
It's like the bar exam.
Yeah.
For financial advice.
Yeah, it was a 10-hour exam over 2 days, and the study for it took me about a year. So it's a serious thing, and it could be on anything in our business. That was the challenging part. So having designations means that people have, they've studied, they've learned the business. I think that's very important.
It's very important.
Yeah. How long have they been doing it for? Someone who's newer to the business, maybe they haven't gone through market downturns before, and that's a big challenge. The market downturn that we had in 2022 was the first one we had since 08-09.
Wow.
So there were a lot of people who were in the business.
Everybody was really happy.
Yeah, there were a lot of people in the business for very long who didn't even ever experience a market downturn before that. The COVID downturn was, it was significant, but it was very quick.
Yeah.
That was a big difference. But, another one is, what is their regulatory record? You can find that right online. A lot of people don't know that. If you go to FINRA Broker Check, you can find out about people's regulatory history and see if they have any marks against them, basically.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, it is. Ask them about how they charge. That's a huge one because in our industry, people charge in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
We charge mostly fees. It's fees based on assets usually. Fee-based means we're fiduciaries. That's the highest standard in our industry. If people do commissionable, which everyone used to do it back when in the stockbroker days, everyone did commissionable business back then. But these days, a lot more people do fee-based. It's transparent. Clients can see what they're paying us, and they know that the changes that we make in their portfolios are based on their best interest, not on us making more money, and that's an important part of it.
That is important.
Mm-hmm. So other than that, I mean, I would just ask what type of clients they have overall. Who is your bread and butter client overall? What professions do you work with most frequently? A lot of it really comes down to kind of personal fit, though. It's like, are you comfortable with that person? Do you trust that person? Obviously, getting a referral is a huge thing because then you don't have to worry about whether or not you can trust that person because someone else has trusted them enough to give you their name. So that's important. But don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions.
Considering your turnout yesterday, you have a lot of fans out there.
Well, I hope so. That was wonderful. Yeah. And we really love to network. That's the way I've really built my business. Very early on, I said if I have to cold call people to be successful in this business, I won't do it.
I'm a terrible cold caller. We've been talking about moving my office to the upstairs at the chamber, and I was like, oh my God, I need a standing desk with a treadmill under it because I can't call people unless I'm moving.
Oh, okay.
Like if I have to call a friend or something, I clean my entire house. Like I'm on the phone and I'm having the full conversation. I just have to move. I hate making phone calls.
Yeah.
And so, I think networking is extremely effective in meeting new people and building your network. And, some people still need to be trained in networking and to know what they're doing. Some of them just get distracted by having people around, and that's fun. So,
the one thing about networking, just to interrupt you for a second, a lot of people think you just show up to events and meet people and you're going to get business, but that's not really, it doesn't stop there. I think a lot of people, they stop there.
It's more about the follow-up.
Yeah, it's about building those relationships. Yeah.
And one of my biggest things, and we're going to the Chamber's going to do Networking 101 with our new member meeting and potential.
It's a great idea.
For everybody. But it's like teaching people how to network and make it effective because people get frustrated with it. They're like, well, I'm coming to events and I'm not getting anything. I'm like, well, what's your procedure in going forward in it? Like, what's your first step, your second step, your third step? There should be a process in mind. You should be moving the whole night. Yeah. And a lot of times, like people stay in the same group they find their safety. They're like, this is my safety area.
Yeah.
Where can I move to? But if you start, just go up to people. Yeah. They're there to talk to you too.
Absolutely.
And don't worry if they're not a direct client.
Yeah.
That's a big one for the chamber. Anybody has a network. So if you meet somebody who's in, they sell carpeting.
Yeah.
You're like, well, and they're not your client. They probably know 500 people. If they're a good networker who gives you leads, you find that lead generator and you generate leads to them, you're good. You have to do half the work. So there's all different ways of techniques.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to hear that you've used the chambers that you belong to to really build your business.
Yeah, I wouldn't spend the money to be in them if we weren't doing that, obviously. Yeah. So, a lot of people, like you said, some people say it's not net sit. You don't walk in. A lot of people walk in, they sit down. They don't talk to anybody but the people right around their circle, and they won't get anywhere with it. It's especially in an industry like mine, it's about building trust with people. It takes a long time.
It does. Yeah,
I was in a group that met every week, and there were people that I was in over a year meeting every week who didn't give me their business until after that. After a year or 2 years. Even,
years later. People switch companies now. Just speaking of the chamber, they switch companies. They're still members. They just switch the name of who they were working for. I'm like, come on in. You're good. And you're with this now. So that's kind of fun. One of the things I implemented at my most recent, we were doing a monthly lunch networking at the club at Nevillewood, which we have today. At the end of it, I say, okay, everybody look across the room, 3 people you haven't talked to, go get their business cards and go meet up with them. Because that at least gets them outside of their regular circle of friends and helps push them towards some new leads and some new business.
Absolutely.
'Cause that's the point.
Yep.
We're trying to get you guys business out there. So
Yeah. Not everyone's a natural in a room. I mean, it's,
No.
you know, I even get nervous going into a room. Sometimes people say, you? And I say, yeah. Sometimes if I walk into a room and I don't know anyone there, I get a little bit nervous about it. But, you know, after a short time, you drum up a conversation and there you go. You know?
I would say if I go downtown
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh and there's like a networking event, I don't know as many people. And so I'm in the room and I am like so nervous.
That surprises
And you wouldn't
me.
see, I'll find like that one person, I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
And here I'm like the loudest person in the room. So it just
Yeah.
depends on environment, you know.
Yeah, it depends on how many people are in the room for me. If it's a large crowd, if it's, 300-400 people that I'm speaking to, then I definitely get a little bit nervous about that sometimes.
Yeah.
But small groups, and also depends on what you're talking about too. I don't know if have you taken Dale Carnegie? Have you ever taken Dale Carnegie?
I took their speech presentation
Okay.
workshop.
I took the
Amazing, by the
course.
way.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
Yeah.
It was really amazing.
I took the course and they made us speak about things that we were not comfortable speaking about in front of a group. And usually it's
That
yourself. That's the hardest thing, right? Talking
Yeah.
about your personal experiences. And it really helped a lot because it makes you come outside your comfort zone that way.
My trick is I just make fun of myself. If I mess up, I'm like, it's just me. Like, I mess up, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I just get it. Every networking event, most of them, I would say there's an element I'm nervous. That never goes away. You just get better at
Yeah,
handling
hiding
it.
it.
You're like,
Yeah.
well.
Well, my daughter she's in theater and everything, and she performs a lot. And we'll say, "Oh, you did a great job," and she was like, "I was a nervous wreck up there," but we would never be able to tell that because she can just put it away.
It's much more natural now.
Yeah.
So, what else about financial advisory that people don't know?
Yeah, I think why you should have one is an important question. A lot of people think they can do it themselves these days because you go online, there's plenty of information out there. There was actually a really good commercial that used to be on TV, and it was a guy sitting at a computer and his son came up and he said, look at this information, this stock, the PE ratio of this stock is 10. And the son said, what does that mean, Dad? And he said, I really don't know. Which I think is, there's a lot of information, but information doesn't equal knowledge.
Well, and I think how many years of research have you done?
Yeah.
An experience that you've done watching the trends, and they're jumping in a year or two out, and they see a steady, oh, this is a nice trajectory for moving forward. But they didn't look back 10, 20 years where this company is done. Things change, or the market, there's more above and beyond it, and there's things change all the time, even in the industry. So and investing has become a lot more commoditized these days. A lot of people say, oh, just jump into the S&P 500 and you'll be fine because it's done really well over time. But that doesn't work for everyone. Some people need to be more conservative than that. Some people might need to be more aggressive than it, depending on their circumstances. There's an advisor I used to work with who he always said there's more value added in the financial planning process than there is on the investment side for our clients. I
I find that to be true a lot
important.
of the time because there are so many things that people don't realize and the laws change all the time. And we have to stay on top of that and how that impacts our clients. And when it does impact our clients, we need to make sure we're on top of helping them with it. And a big one these days is converting traditional IRAs over to Roth IRAs. And a lot of our clients don't know whether that makes sense for them to do or not. So we try to do an analysis for them. And it usually is a pretty in-depth analysis looking at their tax returns. Sometimes we work with their CPAs on it to determine whether they should be converting their IRAs to Roth or not. That's just one example. There are so many examples out there in the financial planning process that we do. And we do the financial planning process for pretty much everybody. There are very few exceptions to that we don't need to do any kind of planning when we work with them. But having a plan in place, that tells us how aggressive or conservative someone needs to be with their money.
Well, and sometimes people just go after like the bigger financial firms, and not that there's anything wrong. That's good for some people. But I've worked with at least 2 different financial advisors, and I would say the first one I had, I was kind of grandfathered into it, and was too conservative. But me being younger, I had no idea. I was like,
Yeah.
here, I don't really know. So that's like a big difference. And then the second one seemed more balanced. So,
Yeah.
make sure that they're doing their due diligence in what you're trying to do, because things change, and like especially ages matter.
Yeah.
Like if you're investing young versus investing when you're older, like that's a big difference too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that we do though is it involves psychology, and I often say I wish I had a psychology degree, because that would be very useful sometimes, because a lot of it's keeping clients from making bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I get calls on a regular basis when the markets aren't going very well. What should I do? What should I do? Right, you ride it out. You stay the course.
Ride it out, yeah.
You stay the course, because
Don't look.
Yeah.
Let
We
me
put it-
look. I'll
yeah.
let you know.
we put their portfolio in place to deal with the upside and the downside, the good and the bad times. And so you have to ride those kinds of things out.
I can only imagine how stressed out some people would get, especially new people investing, and how they're probably watching all the time.
Yep.
But it's true. It fluctuates, and you have to know that it fluctuates, and that's why they have you. You're an expert in it. You could advise them on, what's happening, and I'm sure you have to talk. Psychology is big, because during those downturns, I'm sure you field a lot of just emotionally driven calls where you have to just, relax them. And
Yeah. One of our clients many years ago said to me, he said, "Dave, don't ever bury your head in the sand when the markets aren't going well." He said, "That's the time when clients need you the most." And that really stuck with me throughout my career. And so when the markets do get bad, I send out more communications to clients because I want them to know what our thoughts are. And oftentimes I quote Warren Buffett during those times, because he wrote an article back in 2008 during the Great Recession, and basically said, "I'm buying U.S. stocks right now while everyone else wants to sell them."
Yeah.
And it's a great article that anyone can find online. It's a New York Times op-ed piece from back then. I think it's called "Buy American, I Am." I quote it all the time because there are so many wise little quotes in that article. And what he was saying basically is, if you're trying to wait for things to get better, the news to get better, before you invest or before you put your money back in the markets, you're going to be too late.
Yeah.
Because the markets will come back before that happens. So psychology is an extremely important part of our job overall.
Well, and people should understand that the news, especially, local national news, they're doing it for ratings.
Yeah.
I say that about the weather.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're doing it for ratings. So it's probably not going to be a hurricane. It's going to be some, it just depends. And it's sensationalized, which is fine. And it's for their purposes. But please read more than one source also.
Yeah.
Like, cover your ground, know what else is out there, and actually study the facts instead of just picking up what's scrolling down your Facebook page, because that's not always accurate.
Even the information we get, you have to always ask, what is their axe to grind? We'll see like a bond manager will send us an article, the stock market's not going to do well, going forward, because they want everyone to invest in their bonds, So you definitely have to pay attention to all of that stuff. And oftentimes I tell clients during the difficult times, don't open your statements, don't watch TV. A guy called me one time and he said, "This guy's predicting the market's going to go down 5,000, down to 5,000, and what should I do?" And I said, "Shut off the TV." And he just laughed. I'll never forget that laugh, little chuckle he had when I said it. And he said, "You're probably right about that." I said, "I'm definitely right about that," because they definitely want their ratings, and they'll get the people with the crazy opinions on things.
Oh, and some people are so impulsive that they would, if they weren't working with you, they'd probably be shutting things down and turning things on every other day and losing everywhere. So I think that's, you have to be careful around the news. I mean, generally speaking, the news is informative. But
there's a company out there, they used to call them the robo-advisors, which basically you put your money in there and you kind of let it ride and they'll adjust it for you and everything. And that was supposedly going to take over our industry a few years back, which you haven't heard that probably, right?
I
much.
haven't.
Well, what happened one time when the market had a huge correction, their website went down because everybody was on there trying to sell their investments.
Oh, no.
Because no one was preventing them from doing it. They were able to do it on their own. Well, it crashed because so many people went on and were selling at the wrong time. And so that's the danger of leaving it to yourself to make those decisions.
I mean, AI is great. We're all trying to integrate it into what we do, but there are so many things that could go wrong. You have to be very careful, and you have to monitor it, and you have to know what you're doing. Like, it can be in anything. Like, I mean, I've seen stuff like, I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
Like, oh no. Especially with the web and like how it's used. So
it can make our industry more efficient in some ways. I actually have a call with a guy today who, if you can't actually record the conversations, but it listens to your conversation and it gives you bullet points on your whole conversation. It puts them in our database.
Yeah.
Emails them out to whoever you want to email them out to. And it has all of the points of all the things that you need to do.
I've been on a call with that. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
You got to forewarn people about that.
Yeah.
He, very smart guy who runs a company that's not really that close to here, but met him at a networking event. And I was like, okay, I'll follow up with him because I've seen him a million times. And I mean, it took notes. And then it's all sent to me, and I'm like, but I didn't know he was doing that.
Oh,
so at the end,
that's
I'm
not
like,
good.
well, okay. I don't even know what just happened, which was kind of a turn off. If he was like, hey, do you mind if like I have this thing and it'll just record bullet points of what we're both talking about so we can both share information? I'd be like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be great, because like you forget things that you say on the phone. And so that was my only downfall. I think that's, as long as it's kind of like, you just got to let people know. It's like recording a Zoom meeting. Like, I'm going to record this, so don't.
We're not allowed to record. So there's a couple of providers that are approved in our industry because they don't record. They only take the notes and get rid of any recording that was done.
Yeah.
Or I guess it really just doesn't record. It just listens and takes notes.
Well, especially Pennsylvania is like a one-party or two-party state, right? So you can't even record anybody in Pennsylvania unless they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But things like that are really valuable, but there are some really dangerous parts to it also. I don't know if you've had any experience with this personally, but a few of our family members have gotten phone calls that said they were my children and said they were in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounded just like my kids, according to them.
My grandmother, my cousin Joey, he was in jail in Alabama.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
Yeah.
But they called my grandmother, and she was about to send thousands of dollars over the phone. Luckily, my aunt she called my aunt first. And we were like, well, that doesn't sound right. Like, let's just call him and
But can you imagine if someone called us and sounded just like one of our clients and asked to withdraw a whole ton of money and send it to somewhere? I mean, that could be a huge problem in our industry down the road. I think it will be that way.
Yeah.
It'll be something that we're going to have to find ways around to protect our clients.
There is a lot of the unknown with AI, and that could really be terrible in the end if you're not careful. So hopefully, I mean, you don't want regulations on it. At the same time, you're like, well, can you regulate it a little bit just so it's safe for consumer use? Because you're not protected. There's so much stuff out there. How can you know what you're using and what is good for your business?
Yeah. I was at a conference last year, and the speaker was talking about AI, and he said, take a look at this video of me. This is me saying whatever in German, and he played it. And he said, this is me saying the same thing in Polish, and he played a video. He said, neither of those was me actually doing it, and it looked just like him doing it.
Nobody better steal my identity. They don't want it.
That's
I'm
right.
just kidding.
So that's the scary part of it,
Right.
And there will be new safeguards that will have to come out about that.
Yeah, and you can get it from, I mean, some of that stuff you can get from anywhere, and they can pull any image and they can pull any video and just replicate it. I mean, you've seen what you can do with just redesigning a business profile, or like a headshot. You can make it look completely like you had one done and you're in your backyard with a margarita.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at me. I just went in there. So.
Yeah, there's good and bad to it, and hopefully they find ways to keep the bad out of it as much as possible and use the good as much as possible.
Yeah. There was a celebrity who just went through that. Somebody just completely replicated her.
Oh, okay.
She was like, that wasn't me. That's weird.
Yeah.
Scary.
It is scary. It's very scary.
Luckily, they don't care about us here as much.
Well, they tend to target seniors. That's, and a lot of our clients are seniors. And so they'll call us sometimes, and I appreciate when they do. They'll say, I got an email, and it kind of looks like it might be from you. we've gotten emails in the office. I need to change my bank on my payroll, and it's not even one of my employees. It's
That's
somebody
scary.
else.
Well, and all the banks are very, they're talking a lot about cybersecurity this year. I think that's been a big push, especially when it deals with money. You have to make sure all those funds are secure.
And then ransomware is a very scary part of it too. We have a lot of safeguards in place. As you can imagine, the data that we have is, it's extremely important to keep private. And if we lost all of our clients' data, that would be a massive problem.
Massive problem.
Yeah. So we have 3 different ways of protecting that, online, in the office.
That's great.
Just to make sure everything's safe.
Yeah, because you just have to look at all different. You want to back up on your backup on your backup when it comes to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's especially since you're not like part of a bigger corporation, like you had to put those in place and find out, do your due diligence to have those all together.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, the nice thing is though, I think that you actually bring me into an important point. Even though we're a smaller company in terms of number of employees, we have a relationship with a back office provider. It's called Osaic. And there are 11,000 advisors who work through Osaic, so it's actually a pretty large group. So we create economies of scale for ourselves by contracting with Osaic. And the nice thing is if it's not working out there, then we could go somewhere else.
That's nice.
When you work for one of those big companies, their back office people are their back office people.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing their job,
how
tough.
do you know?
Tough,
Yeah.
You're stuck with them because they're part of that company,
That's good. You also have the backup of having that bigger company behind you as well.
Yeah, for people who worry about the name or, well, I don't know your name, or, you only have this many employees, there is a lot of backup that we can create, and we make ourselves able to compete, with those big companies overall.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, you have to tell them about the name. I didn't know that's how you got the name.
Yeah, so anybody who lives in Peters Township knows the name Just About Road. There's actually a very large mansion. I don't know if you've ever seen it on our road.
I don't think I've ever been down there.
It's
I'm going to come find your house now.
It's on the opposite end of the road from me. It's a very long road. But I live on Just About Road, and so the name Just About Wealth Management came from the road I live on. So it wasn't just a really
Is there
catchy,
a story
creative
behind
name.
the name of the road that you know of?
I was trying to dig into that, and the only thing I can think of is that it's connected to Bebout Road. So I have a feeling that the Bebout family maybe
was part of it.
Came up with that, but yeah, I haven't been able to find the answer to that actually at this point.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But
like
people don't forget the name. That's the good part. I could have named it the company after me, but what happens when I retire and my name's not there anymore? I don't want to make it harder on the people who continue to work there because their name isn't Hoffmann.
I think it was a good choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like the name. Good. Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share about what you do or your company?
No, obviously we're looking to grow it. I'm looking to grow it through new clients. We work, like I said, we work with anyone from young people up to multimillionaires. I like working with 401k plans, anywhere from one employee up to several hundred employees we work with on the 401k side. I'm looking to grow the company through acquiring other practices also. So I'm looking out there for people who may be getting close to retirement. So we're looking, at doing it that way, but also organically through hiring more people as well. So, we're looking for good financial advisors who maybe are not happy with their current, position or their current company. So,
well, the chamber will keep our ears open for any of that. We like to make business partnerships happen and get you more employees so you can do better. So.
What else makes you indispensable, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll share your information out here with everybody so they can get in contact with you, if not just to have a coffee, right? Have a networking session with you or one of your
come and visit us.
Other advisors in there. Yeah, come visit. Up at the top of it, Abilene.
That's right.
Park.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on
I
today.
appreciate
And we appreciate all the information. I think everybody out there has something to think about.
Sure. Great.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Southwestern PA Business Podcast. My name is Mandy Pryor. I'm Director of Southwest Regional Chamber. And if you'd like to join us for Networking 101 or our new and potential networking event, we have it coming up on August 1st at the Galleria Panera at I think 9 or 10 a.m. Go to southwestregionalchamber.org to double check that. We'll see you at the next episode. Thanks so much. And thanks to David for joining me today.